Hello, wonderful nonprofit heroes and rock stars. We are coming today with another video to help you leverage your Salesforce to create a greater impact in the world through your nonprofit. And today we're talking about the basics of reporting. So reporting is one of the main things we want our CRM to do well. It's one of the reasons we use a CRM, why we put all of our data into this one place so that we can create reports that show us information about what's happening in our organization that is meaningful and actionable. So the big part of that is reporting. And it can be a little overwhelming, especially if you're new to Salesforce. So we're going to break it down today into the most basic sections possible. First off, you're obviously going to have to log into Salesforce. Once you do that, click on your Reports tab. And once you do that, you'll get the screen that we see here. In this screen, on the left-hand side, you've got folders and reports. By default, it shows you your recent reports that you've accessed. But you can go browse all reports. You can browse folders if you're saving reports within separate folders for, say, your development team versus your program team. So all of that is available on this screen. And then in the right here is just the list of the reports that are showing. What we're worried about today is creating a new report, though. So we're going to click on that button. When the next screen loads, you're going to see that it's asking you to choose a report type. And this is a really important step. The report type, if you remember back to our last video around objects, record types, and fields, the report type determines which objects are going to be brought into this report. So which objects are you going to be bringing data in for? And I don't want to get too into the weeds about how this is set up, but it's really important to know that for all reports, you have a primary object, and then you can have secondary and tertiary objects. So how this works is, if I've got an opportunities with accounts object, what that means is it's going to show me all the opportunities that have accounts attached, is how most of them are set up. So you're not going to see all your accounts for that type of report. You would have to select accounts with opportunities. So the phrasing in these are kind of important. The first object you see is going to be your primary object, and then whatever comes after that is going to be your secondary object. So for instance, contacts and accounts is going to show you all your contacts and any accounts that are related to those contacts. Today, we're going to keep it simple, and we're going to make a report on donations, which of course Salesforce calls opportunities. And we're not looking for anything fancy. We just want to make a report on our opportunities. And today, what we're looking to create is a report of all of our open opportunities that are above $10,000 amount. Anything that is open, which for this organization that we're working in is pledged or prospecting, over $10,000. And we're going to define those characteristics under this Filters tab. Filters determine which records show up in your report. So that's a really important thing to recognize. And every report has its own default filters. So you'll see that this shows me all opportunities with a close date in the current fiscal quarter and any status and any probability. We're going to change a couple of these because I don't want just current fiscal quarter close dates. I want any close date, and I only want opportunities that are open. I'm not looking for anything that's closed that we received, that we won, or that we closed and lost that we didn't get. So I'm going to click on opportunity status, and I'm going to say open. Now the third part of this puzzle was that we wanted only donations above $10,000. So we need to find our amount, and we do that by clicking in the add filter and just typing in the field that we want to filter by. And in here you can see that under opportunity information, amount comes up. We'll go here and we are going to say greater or equal to $10,000. And we'll hit apply. Now, depending on your settings, you might either see the preview on the right-hand side. If it's gray, that means it's not updating automatically. I have it set that way because when recording videos, it's a lot better performance. But if you're not recording videos and you've got great internet and your computer's not slow, you can check this little box right above that gray box and say update preview automatically. And what that'll do is that'll show you all of or at least show you a preview of the records that match your filters and what it'll look like. So that's what that button does. And let's say that this is all we're really interested in at this point, is showing me the opportunities, close date, anytime, that are open and above $10,000. Great. So then we want to maybe look at these columns we've got, right? We want to look at which fields show up. So we determined our object by our report type. And now we want to determine which fields show up, because we've got our set of records, which are determined by our filters. So in order to determine the fields that show up, we go to our outline. And our outline shows us all these columns. This is a really basic format called a tabular report, which is just like a spreadsheet. It's really useful when you're looking for certain things, and we're also going to talk about one other type of report. There's 4 in total. We're going to talk about one other today. So what if I don't want this column, this first column, which is owner role? Well, I've got 2 options. I can click on this little icon here, and I can remove all these columns and start from scratch, or I can just remove this one column by clicking the little X next to it. And that'll remove that column from the preview and from the report. So let's go through and identify what we want to keep and what we don't. And for the sake of this report, let's say all I'm really interested in are the account name, opportunity name, who the opportunity owner is on my team, the stage, and the amount. I'm not really worried about anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and check the little X next to each one of the fields or columns that doesn't match what I want to see on my final report. So I don't need to see next step, created date, close date, age, probability, expected revenue. None of that stuff needs to stay for this example. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of those briefly. All right, so I've removed all of those fields. And if I click the update preview automatically, or if I click refresh, it'll show me what the report now looks like. And now we're starting to look like something I might want. But there's a couple of problems yet. And one of those is that while this is great, it's not really organized very effectively. So what I can do is I can sort these fields by clicking on the little arrow next to one of the fields. And so if I want to sort by, let's say, stage, I can say sort ascending or sort descending. And then it'll show me them kind of grouped together by that field. So this is all the prospectings together. That might be useful, but maybe I actually need something else in there, and that would be taking this from what's called a tabular report to a summary report. And all that means is that we're going to group some of these rows together so that we can see a summary of similar items. And we do that with this group rows option up here at the top. So let's say instead of sorting by stage, I want to group by stage. So I type in stage into the add group and I click stage. All right, so now I'm getting to something interesting. I've got my prospecting all put together here and my pledged put together below. Now again, this is a limited number of records according to this. In general, it'll show us a maximum of 50. There's a couple of other really interesting things that I want to talk about here. One, I can group by multiple rows. So if I wanted to also say, you know what, I want a little more information. Instead of just what's prospecting, are those grants, are those donations, are those major donors? What kinds of opportunities are those? I can go in and I can also group by opportunity record type. Doing this will group them in order. So stage will be first still, and then opportunity record type will be subcategories. So now I see prospecting, donations, and when I hit run, I'll probably see some other types of opportunities in here. Again, this is just a limited number. So this can be really useful. The other thing that's really good to know is down below, you see how we've got these check marks down here? We can, in a summary, we can do detail rows or not show detail rows. If I just want summary information, if I uncheck detail rows, all of these white individual records are going to be hidden but I'll still see all of the major information, so the counts and the totals and that kind of thing. So this can be really useful, especially when your board doesn't really want to know all the individual donations. They just want a brief overview of like, okay, how many do we have that are prospecting versus how many do we have that are donations or that are pledged? So that can be a really useful item there. Now, if we go ahead and bring our detail rows back, you'll notice it's not giving us subtotals for the amount. Why not? We can go in and we can actually tell it that we want specifically to have amount be summarized. And we do that by clicking on this little icon, clicking on Summarize, and clicking Sum. All right, now we're starting to get somewhere. So now we see that the subtotal for prospecting donations is $7 million and change. And for this preview at least, the subtotal for pledged items, for pledged donations, is $2,400,000, giving us a grand total of $9.5 million. Now again, you can hide your detail rows. Your amount should stay there now that it knows that you care about it by summarizing it. And all of a sudden, you've got a really condensed, really useful type of report that you can hand off to somebody on your team for them to make better decisions. But first off, you got to save it. That's an important thing here. So we're going to make sure that we hit save and run, and it's going to ask us to name this report. And I'm going to say opportunities. Oops, I'm going to say open opportunities above $10,000. And then I choose which folder to save it in. If I choose private reports, I'm the only one that can see it. That's really important to know if your other teammates need to see this report. You might go in and select a public folder or even create a folder for, let's say, our development reports. Great, and I'll hit save. And then I can select that folder. So development reports, it shows it up here. I'm going to select that folder to save this in, and I'm going to hit. All right. So here we go. We've got our full list, and you'll notice that we've got more records than we did in the preview. We've got 57 records with a total amount of almost $7 million. And this is broken down. So we know that we've got how many grants? We've got 2 grants prospecting for almost $1 million, but we've got 28 donations prospecting for $14.5 million. With this information, you can help prioritize which donations to go after for your team. Maybe you need to dedicate more personnel to chasing down donations in this instance than the couple of grants that you've got hanging out there. As far as pledged, you might also recognize, like, holy smokes, 27 pledged donations that we haven't closed yet. $11.5 million. Maybe instead of working just on the prospects, which are really important but are a little less likely to convert, maybe we should go after and apply some man hours and woman hours to all of these opportunities, these donations that have been pledged that we haven't actually received yet. So this is a really functional way to use a really basic report to create meaningful, actionable data within your org. Great. So you created your first open opportunities above $10,000 report. Now what? Well, first off, you want to be able to see this. So let's go to our reports folder, this tab again, and we should see it show up in our recent list. But what if we wanted to tell our coworker to go find this report? Well, we created a developments folder. So if we go to all folders here, we should see development reports. And then in there, right now, there should only be one report, and that's our open opportunities above $10,000. And so what you can do is you can have them look for that, or if you want to make it really easy for them, if it's a public report, so it's not saved in your private folders, you can actually copy and paste this URL at the top, send that in an email if you're using email, or Chatter in Salesforce if you're using Chatter, or Slack, Microsoft Teams, whatever your communication platform is, post it in a Trello board or whatever. So you can just copy and paste that URL and it'll actually take you straight to that report. Take anybody in your org straight to that report as long as they have access to that folder, which in your org they probably do because you made it a public folder. So that's all I've got for today. To go through it again real quick, report type tells you which objects are going to be pulled into your report. Filters determine which records are going to be pulled into your report. And your outline determines which fields are displayed and how they're displayed. So you can be tabular like a spreadsheet or summary report like we've got here. And then you're going to want to save it, run it so you can see all the records, because in the report builder, you only see a small preview. And then you can save it to a public folder and share it with your colleagues to create action. We'll also talk in a future video about how to create a dashboard out of these and use this really awesome button up here called Add Chart to make this visually appealing so that you don't have to use your brain as much and you can just create action easily. So that's all for today. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and thanks for making an impact in the world.